Welcome back to Outdoor Ventures. Wanted to give you a little bit of an idea on what we're doing right now. Behind me, you'll see that I've got a Aquasport 222, barely fitting in the garage, but it's a 22-foot center console boat. And we're kind of rehabbing it. We're gonna take this old boat from basically a shell into hopefully a fishing machine. So
The boat's moving.
who's pushing the boat?
I didn't do it.
We recently removed the rub rail. That's that rubberized piece that goes around the outside of the boat. And it was attached with a ridiculous amount of screws. But now the whole cap is loose and ready to come off. I just need enough people to help me lift it off. This is the casting platform, or at least that's what I'm going to call it. It's up near the bow of the boat. We're probably going to end up keeping this. This is, as far as what we can see, is structurally sound. So what we're going to do is probably just potentially put some recessed handles for the knob. We'll get rid of the little motor pull start thing up there that opens that hatch, and probably put some flush mounted handles, maybe hinges too, we'll see. But we got to see what that's going to look like. Another section of the boat here. This is our transom. Back of the boat, motor used to go right here. Plan is so far, at least from what we've talked about, and I'm working on this with my brothers and my dad. We're going to replace this. We're going to replace it with a newer, more modern material called Aquasport. Aquasport is like a foam composite material with fiberglass. It's supposed to be the strength of wood, but it's not going to rot like wood does. So we're going to put that on the back here, and potentially an Armstrong bracket too, but we'll come to that when we get to it. One more thing I wanted to mention too with cutting out these bulkheads, so this like bonding cement or whatever it is, was quite a challenge to get through. We originally started thinking that we were just going to chisel through it, which we did chisel a little bit, but actually it was just easier just to use the saw and cut right through it. And the saw actually did a pretty nice job. Dulled the blade by the end, but just for the speed of getting through it, it was a little easier. We did put a little chisel bit on one of the flush cut blades, and that seemed to work as well. So you guys, I think, experimenting with that kind of stuff. I've also heard, I think it's called a diamond cup, that attachment for a grinder will work too, but it creates a lot of dust. So one of the big keys in my garage, I like to keep it somewhat clean, so keeping the dust down is really kind of a big goal of mine. So yeah, I think the doing as minimal grinding and stuff there as we can was good. That way when we've got a nicer day outside, a little warmer, we can go out there and grind the rest of this stuff off. So basically how the top of the cap was attached was a bunch of these little like flathead screws. It was, each one of these was in here, every single one of those little holes around the entire top of the boat with a little nut on the back. So we actually had to go around the entire boat, and some people actually I've seen cut them off and grind them off, but actually the nut on the back of the screws actually came off pretty easily. So there was only like maybe a handful of screws that we actually had to cut off. So when you guys are taking off your caps, yeah, just keep that in mind. Person on one side, person on the other, one unscrewing with maybe a drill, and the other one holding onto the nut seemed to work for us. Okay, spent a little bit of time this evening just putting this together, just to support the cap just a little bit. So there's just one buys that are kind of strung together. It's more for keeping things separate, so that the cap doesn't break while it's sitting in the backyard. Okay, so I started cutting into the transom a little bit, and I definitely found a lot of rot in here. There's a little piece of fiberglass in here. That seemed to protect this piece, and then we've got another piece. This was kind of a surprise to me. I didn't really expect to find a 1/2 inch thick piece of fiberglass, so that's made a bit of a challenge cutting through it. I started out with my flush cut saw over here, and was gonna kind of start chiseling out the back, but then I realized that as I started chiseling, I wasn't chiseling into wood, I was chiseling into more fiberglass. Used a jigsaw, and eventually I went with a really aggressive blade on the I just forget what these are, what this is called. Called it a saber saw, but yeah, so that's where we're at right now. We did cut off the tops of the stringers, so this is what we're finding. So we've got this foam in here. Most of the foam on top is dry. It's once you get down a little bit deeper that you're finding some moisture and stuff. We can look down in this little hole right here, and you can kind of press enough, you might see the water squirting out. But this was also kind of weird to find in here. It's like the foam filling, or filling of like a pillow or something like that in here, which I found to be pretty strange. Maybe that was just their way to give the fiberglass something to lay on. I'm not really sure. Really strange, but so found some of that in there too. Okay, made some more progress today. We're looking at almost all the foam off the right side of the boat. I believe that's the starboard side. I'm gonna have to get my boat lingo down. I started on the transom, so got a good portion of the fiberglass off the transom in the back. I got to cut some of the stringers up a little bit. I think I decided 12 inches because I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to put them back in, so I didn't want to go all the way to 18. Yeah, so a little bit more work to go, but definitely made some progress today. All right, we made some decent amount of progress this week. Started looking at the front casting deck. I'm just taking a peek at it right now. I think it's going to get removed. We'll sure up any weak spots, anything like that, and then we'll put it back in, but only after we sure up the hull a little bit. Those are our stringers again. Almost all the foam's out. Just got to scrape them, clean them up a little bit. We took out the entire liner. Don't think that's going to go back in. I think we're just going to clean up the sides here of the hole and lay in a couple extra layers of glass and put some knees in to sure it up a little bit. Transom came out. The inner layer was about a 1/2 inch thick of fiberglass, so that was a little difficult removing that. But once we got through it, the wood was mush, so that came out pretty easy. Just needs a good scraping right now. So yeah, that's where we're at. Caps off. This area is getting pretty clean. Trimming things up a little bit, cleaning things out, but we're getting closer to forward progress. So I think the transom Kuza board's on the way, and we've got some glass and materials on the way as well. So looking forward to the next couple weeks.